So today's topic of discussion is on cervical cancer. Do you have any idea about it? What is cervical cancer? Where is the lesion? In the cervix, right? We are going to discuss on these. Question might come, classify, describe and discuss the etiology, pathology, clinical features, differential diagnosis, investigation, staging. And treatment is not included, but we will discuss a little bit of treatment also. You will be having one class after this regarding the early stages and pre-malignant stages. That will be taken up in the next class. I'll just give you a short introduction of cancer cervix. So globally, cervical cancer continues to be one of the most common cancers among women. It is fourth most common after breast, colorectal cancer and lung cancers. So it is a cervical cancer, but it is not the first one. It is not the commonest. The commonest being breast, colorectal, lungs. Fourth is cervical cancer. Now, it is any idea what is the causative agent for cervical cancer? Louder, please. HPV virus. That is full form? Human papilloma virus. These viral oncoproteins means these proteins can cause cancer. So this is called oncoproteins, hijack the host tumor suppressor genes, driving a sequence from precancerous lesions to squamous intraepithelial lesions or adenocarcinoma in situ to invasive carcinoma. This is the sequelae. So what they do, there is a suppressor gene. If that gets inactivated, so the cancer causing, that is the oncogenes, become predominant. So there is a shift of balance between the pro-oncogenes and the suppressor genes. That is how a cancer progresses. It doesn't happen to everyone. So there is somewhat genetic preponderance is also there. The epidemiology, you must have been acquainted with it in your community medicine classes. The epidemiology of cancer cervix. Who are more prone to have? Any idea? Which patients are more prone to have cancer cervix? Just get up. This is not a boardroom. This is an interactive classroom. And the viruses that we have mentioned, human papilloma virus, it has different strains. You must be aware of a vaccine, HPV vaccine. Have you taken it? Have any one of you taken the HPV vaccine? Should you have taken it? Yes. So make it a point to take it. Okay, we will discuss about it later on. Now there are certain high risk varieties which are more prone to cause cancer. This is the HPV 16 and 18. Most of it is caused by this, almost 78%. The other types, that is 31, 33, 45, 52, 58, they cause the additional 18%. So the key factors you have said, there could be a weakened immune system. Those who are immunologically weak, they have some infection like HIV. The immune system is impaired. Smoking can cause damage to cervical cells. You have mentioned multiple sex partners, right? So the strains can come from multiple sex partners. These are the oncoproteins we have discussed, the oncogenes we have discussed, and the strains which are most prone to cause cancer cervix. Please give us the strains. The commonest high-risk HPV strains. Louder, please. 16 and 18. And this is the long-term use of oral contraceptives. That can also cause. Why? Because when a person uses oral contraceptives, they are sure that they will not contract a pregnancy. So that can invite multiple sexual activity. That can also be a cause. These are all epidemiological factors. Multiple pregnancies, other STIs, that is sexually transmitted infections like chlamydia and other diseases, STIs, and there is lack of screening. You know what is screening? What is screening? Anyone from here? You have read what is screening in community medicine. You are trying to screen. That means you want to detect at its earliest, even before the patient is aware of it. So it can be done in a apparently healthy group of patients. And you pick up the screen positive patients and then you can follow them up. If you find a screen positive, then it becomes easier for you. Thank you. So we have discussed about this. There are some molecular mechanisms, viral oncoproteins, that is E6 and E7. E6 inactivates the tumor suppressor protein and E7 binds and inactivates the retinoblastoma gene. This results in unchecked cellular proliferation. This is what we have discussed. Now, where does it form? Cervical cancer, it usually forms in the transformation zone. Now, what is the transformation zone? Any idea? Someone from there? Are you in the class? If you are in the class, you have to interact to prove that you are in the class. Transformation zone, please get up. Louder, louder. It is the junction between the columnar epithelium of the endocervix and the squamous epithelium of the ectocervix. So cervix has two parts, endocervix and ectocervix. Yeah, chalk. So this is the columnar junction, that is the ectocervix and the endocervix. This junction is the region which is most likely to have cervical cancer. So this is the anatomical location. See the ectocervix, the transformation zone and the endocervix. Just remember, it starts from the transformation zone. Why? There is a change in the epithelium. So it can start with metaplasia. There is overgrowth of this columnar junction. Most cervical cancer arise in the transformation zone, the squamocolumnar junction, where the columnar epithelium of endocervix meets the squamous epithelium of the ectocervix. Make it very clear. It is simple. Just keep it in your mind. You will say and speak in that manner. Now, what is the transformation zone? It is the normal part of cervix, the lower end of the uterus that opens into the vagina. Two different types of cells, squamous cells, they cover the outer surface of the cervix, that is the ectocervix, and glandular cells which line the cervical canal. So what we see with the speculum, have you been to the OPD? Gynae OPD must have attended. Have you used a speculum or have you seen someone using the Cusco speculum or same speculum? You can see the cervix. What part of the cervix are you seeing? Ectocervix. So endocervix is inside. It is having the glandular epithelium. And the ectocervix, just like, you know, the vagina that you see, it has squamous epithelium. So it is a type of squamous epithelium that is lining the ectocervix. And this is how it progresses. Healthy epithelium, cervical interepithelial neoplasia 1, 2, 3, and cancer. So this is how it progresses. The histological classification, it is mostly squamous cell carcinoma, 70 to 80%, adenocarcinoma, that is arising from the squamous epithelium, that is 20 to 25%, and the others are adenosquamous, neuroendocrine, clear cell, all these types. Now pathologically, we have two ways of expressing it, macroscopic and microscopic. Macroscopic is the gross anatomy. How will you see? When you inspect, when you see, what do you see? There is a hypertrophic exophytic producing cauliflower-like growth, eroding and ulcerative, and the endocervix may form papillary nodes appear in the cervical canal, and the cervix becomes barrel-shaped. So it can either be like a cauliflower, this is the exophytic growth of the ectocervix, and suppose it starts in the canal, then what happens? There can be papillary growths and the cervical canal becomes more broader. On outside, you cannot see anything. You will see the barrel of the cervix getting larger in size. It's like a cylindrical growth. It has started from the endocervix. These are the various histopathological types. You primarily remember it is squamous, mostly, and glandular, the second common, and the others are all these. So it can arise from any type of cells, but principally it arises from the squamous epithelium. Please remember it. These are all histopathological classifications. We don't need it so much in your UG classes. We might take up, when you take up postgraduate classes, we will take up then. Now the precancerous lesions, these are the low-grade squamous epithelial lesion, that is mild dysplasia corresponding to CIN1. This often spontaneously regresses, can regress. This high-grade lesion, that is CIN1, 2 and 3, are true precancerous state with a higher risk of progression to invasion. Now, what do you mean by progression? There is a basement membrane. If you breach the basement membrane, that means it has invaded. This is invasive. When we come to staging, we will explain. So, when the basement membrane is intact, we can call it cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. Once it is breached, that means the cervical cancer has set in. These, I think you have got some knowledge in your community medicine, in your pathology classes, microbiology classes with HPV virus, but now it is a cumulative knowledge that you have to acquire. So progression, how does it progress? Direct spread. It spreads directly by continuity to stroma of the cervix, vagina, uterus, parametrium. What is parametrium? Parametrium is by the side of the uterus. Simple. First explain it as by the sides of the uterus. So it spreads to all this by contiguity, by just direct spread. Then there is lymphatic spread through lymphatic channels. Hematogenous spread is less common in cervix. Which spread is more common? What type of spread is most common in cancer cervix? Hello, are you all awake? Please get up. What type of spread is most common in cancer cervix? How does it spread to other organs or the stages increased? Lymphatic spread. Lymphatic channels, you understand? And direct is by contiguity. Whatever structures are nearby, it spreads along with it. It crawls with it. And lymphatic spreads are the lymphatic channels through which the cancer spreads. Please remember it. Take your seat. So why lymphatic drainage of cervix is so important? You will be asked to write a question on lymphatic drainage of cervix. This question is a very common question in your theory paper. Okay, so that is why this lymphatic drainage, because this is the channel through which the cancer spreads. So this is very important. When you treat cancer cervix, we have to take care of the lymphatic channels also. Otherwise, you cannot treat it. It will be there. Am I clear? If you have any confusion, please ask. This is the place where you ask. If you don't ask, you will go half-baked cakes and you cannot do justice to yourself or to the society. Please ask now. Make mistakes now. So this is how it spreads. And what are the lymphatic channels? They drain into the paracervical. Paracervical means besides the cervix. Parametrium means besides the uterus. Lymph nodes, wherefrom lymph passes to obturator, internal, external, and common iliac, and finally to para-aortic lymph nodes. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, these lymphatic channels usually follow the vascular pattern. You have heard the name of aorta? What is aorta? Aorta. What is it? Major vessel. And it has branches, common iliac. Common iliac again branches into internal iliac, external iliac. See how the lymphatic channels are following. Names are like that. So if you remember the main vessel, the channel, lymphatic channels also follow the same pattern. So we have these internal iliac, external iliac, common iliac, and finally to para-aortic means besides the aorta. So this is how the lymphatic channels spread. And posterior part of lymphatics go through the rectal pillars to drain into the rectal lymph nodes. So this is the picture where you will see all the lymphatic channels. See here the cervix. It has spread via the parametrial, paracervical, obturator, internal, external, common iliac, then posteriorly to the para-aortic. Can you see? Is your idea clear? When you draw this, the aorta coming, then it branches off. This is the aorta, common iliac, again it branches off, internal iliac, external iliac. So this is how it goes. And the cervical lymph nodes, keeping this as the cervix, they also follow this pattern. So remember the vascular anatomy and you will remember the lymphatic channels. This much is very easy. Is it easy? This quarter is very quiet. Very humble, quiet. Speak up, speak up. Please speak up. Don't feel so shy to speak up. Now, why lymphatic drainage is important? Because these are the lymph nodes which need to be removed along with cancer cervix when you are treating the patient. That is why you are so much harping on the same music, that is the lymphatic channels. You have to remove these paracervical, parametrial, by parametrial resection, all pelvic nodes, that is obturator, internal and external iliac. Then the common iliac nodes. See, the names are following the blood vessels. Common iliac lymph nodes with or without para-aortic lymph nodes. Then LVSI is lymphovascular space invasion. That is, when the cancer cervix penetrates the lymphovascular space, it has a bad prognosis. That means it is difficult to treat. Patient's lifespan is threatened. This patient will not survive for long. So these are the criteria that we have to keep in mind. Sometimes the inguinal lymph nodes also are involved. So when you can expect a question from lymphatic drainage of cervix in your undergraduate final MBBS exam. Okay, so please go through this lymphatic drainage of cervix very thoroughly today itself. Finish it off today and you remember it. So common features, clinical features. We have discussed about the pathology somewhat. Now how will the patient present to you? Any idea? Suppose you are in the outdoor and a patient comes and your say your teacher or your professor says that this is a cancer cervix patient perhaps. So what might be the presenting symptom of the patient? How will the patient come to you? Very good. Who said? Get up and say, we have just one fellow here. Others speak up. You must have also seen postcoital bleeding and patient may complain. Take a seat. Patient will complain of this, isn't it? Intermenstrual bleeding, something that is not regular. Periods come regular intervals. So this is something intermenstrual bleedings can cause this. So we have early stage is often asymptomatic. Patient doesn't give any symptoms. So these are the patients. How will you pick up? How can you pick up these patients? We have talked about screening. So if you screen and a pap smear is positive, you can pick up this patient. You can save her life. You can follow her up, treat, and she will have a good quality of life. All depends on how you pick up the patient. One is screening and pick up. So sometimes as it progresses, the symptoms become more florid. They can present with anemia, undernutrition, abnormal vaginal bleeding, vaginal discharge. No bleeding, but foul smelling discharge. This can, blood-stained discharge. These can also be the forerunner of cancer cervix. Then pelvic pain. These are all late stage. That means, see, pelvic pain she is having, that means the cancer has spread. It might have spread through the rectal node to the rectal nodes. Now your say scope of treatment is gradually decreasing. Later the patient comes to you, lesser you can give her benefit. Do you understand this statement? If a person has cancer cervix and you detect it at its earliest, you can do some good to the patient, right? And if she comes late, or because you have detected late, she had come several times but you couldn't detect, then who is at fault? Doctor? We are at fault. So you have to be on the alert and you have to do public awareness among the masses. When to knock the doctor. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. Now how will you, the symptoms here, see, with vaginal discharge, irregular or uncomfortable urination, bleeding, painful intercourse, postcoital bleeding, weight loss, leg pain, swelling, these are all late stages symptoms. Now the complications of cancer cervix, uremia. Why do you think there will be uremia? How will the ureteric obstruction occur? At what stage? Will it be in the early stage? Any idea? Will it be in the early stage? The ureters will be involved? No. So, it will be in the late stage. You have to pick up in the early stage with abnormal bleeding or abnormal discharge, bleeding abnormal, postcoital bleeding or any intermenstrual bleeding. There can be hydronephrosis. That means the ureter is obstructed, so there is back pressure and there is hydronephrosis. What is hydronephrosis? What is hydronephrosis? Anyone? Please? Any idea what is hydronephrosis? No, there is a back pressure. There is ureteric obstruction. So swelling of the pelvis of the uterus. Pelvis of the kidney. And then there is a back pressure and ultimately the kidney fails. There is a swelling of all the structures inside the kidney. That means the pelvis is dilated, then the ductules are affected, nephrons are affected and hydronephrosis. So the functioning capacity of kidney is jeopardized. So there may be pyometra. Pyometra means collection of pus in the uterus. Why? Because the cervix has been involved. So there is obstruction. Outflow tract gets obstructed. So the discharge that was so long coming out, now that is pent up in the uterus. So there is pyometra. Pyometra means accumulation of pus in the uterus. So these are the complications that we are discussing. And these are the fistula. What is a fistula? Say vesico-vaginal fistula, vesico-cervical, rarely recto-vaginal fistula. Fistula is a abnormal communication between two viscera or two cavities that is not naturally present. Is vagina fistula? Uterus is opening into it. No, that is a natural conduit. But any abnormal pathological connection between two viscera or cavities, viscus and cavity is called a fistula. See, there is a fistula, connection between the bladder and the vagina. Because the cancer has infiltrated so much that there is a channel between the bladder and the vagina. So when the patient is passing urine, you can see there can be blood through vagina. That is coming out through urine. So these are all fistulous tracts, that is abnormal connections between two viscera. Here it is the viscera, the bladder, urinary bladder and the vagina, or the cervix and the vesico means bladder. Okay. And death can occur due to uremia, hemorrhage, metastasis to vital organs, and treatment complications. We treat it with surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. These also have certain complications. So how to diagnose? Patient will come to you. You have to diagnose from, say, history. These patients are not very old. See, in the reproductive age group, because you have said patients are reproductively active. So 30 to 45, paras, PV bleeding, vaginal discharge, backache or pelvic pain, and incontinence of urine or stool. When it will be incontinent? Because of fistulous tracts, the rectum has been communicating with the vagina. Try to imagine. Can you find out? Yes, madam. Are you understanding? I'm a bit confused about this site. Not a word. Am I not clear? Ask, what is your problem? Can you understand what I'm saying? Then you try to speak up. Unless you speak up, you don't know what are your limitations. Try to come up with the problems, then we can solve it. Examination will increase. See, you have to see the general examination. Patient can present with pallor, cachexia, neck gland and inguinal gland enlargement, hepatomegaly in case of metastasis, pedal edema. Why pedal edema? There is compression of there can be ureteric compression, venous compression. So there is pedal edema. There will be nutritional deficiency. There is hypoproteinemia, anemia. All this can cause pedal edema. Ascites or pelvic lump. And systemic examination, if you do a pars speculum, PS means pars speculum examination, you might see a cervical mass. That we have shown that macroscopically it can be presenting with the exophytic growth. That means the growth is outside and you can see it through the speculum. And you can also see papillary growth, ulcerative growth or cauliflower growth. Papillary growth means there are branching of the growth. And PV if you do, that is hard, fixed, may bleed to touch. Vaginal parametrial external assessment you can do by a par rectum examination. If you do a par vagina examination, there is a contact bleeding. Your examining finger can cause bleeding. If you see a patient of cancer cervix and you do a pelvic examination, you will see that the patient can bleed torrentially at times because the tissue is necrotic and she will bleed like hell. These are all late stages, not in early stages. So this is the per speculum examination, per vaginal examination. You have to assess the parametrial and vaginal assessment. Uterine size has to be assessed, and per rectum you will examine to ensure the size of cervix, uterus. Endocervical cancer is barrel shaped. The parametrial, lateral vaginal wall, uterosacral involvement, and rectal mucosa. Try to see the anatomy of the cervix. In front we have, if you see from the lateral side, patient is standing, suppose. Lateral side, if you see, here in front is your bladder and behind is your rectum, and here is the cervix. So if you do a per rectum examination, you can assess how much the lateral spread is, and you will do a per vaginal examination. You can see the growth in the cervix. Try to have some idea, and if we see from front, this much of anatomy is clear. Not a very complicated anatomy. Pelvic anatomy idea you have to have. Had classes on pelvis, fetus and pelvis. Now try to imagine a section, the coronal section. We are cutting above downwards. So this is the section of the pelvis, and the internal os lies at the level of the ischial spine. Okay, and we will describe the cervical cancer in terms of its spread to the lateral wall, to the vagina, and so here is the cervix. It will spread through lymphatic channels, through pelvic nodes, the iliac nodes, and behind the cervix, what do we have? What structure? Rectum, and that is draining into para-aortic nodes. So, see, the whole thing gets involved in late stages. So, when you are trying to treat the patient in late stages, we will discuss about the stages of cervical cancer, why it is important to know the anatomy, the lymphatic drainage, and the treatment depends on your knowledge of anatomy and lymphatic drainage. And we have discussed about the clinical features. You have to first diagnose. So how will you, a patient, if you feel that the patient has cancer cervix, what do you think the patient will come with? Give one symptom that patient will complain of. Any one of you, please. Last bench. Any other discussion going on? What are we talking about? One symptom of cancer cervix from this quarter, please. Vaginal discharge and bleeding. Anything else? Louder, louder. Get up and say. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. Get up and say. Red shirt. Patient may present with uremia, obstruction, backache, pallor, cachexia. Cachexia means extreme weight loss. Yes. Thank you. Now, how will you diagnose? The common diagnostic and staging tools. First is clinical examination that we have discussed so many times. The screening tests are Pap tests and HPV DNA testing. This is how we are trying to find out what strain has been involved in it. HPV DNA testing. Visual inspection and imaging. Visual inspection we do with acetoacetic acid. Acetic acid and iodine. That is Lugol's iodine. Visual inspection with Lugol's iodine. This is called villi. And VIA is with acetic acid. These will be taken up in another class where the pre-malignant lesions are discussed. Now for the investigations, these are the investigation: Pap smear, punch biopsy, that is take a biopsy of the tissue, then examine under the microscope to see how far it has involved. Colposcopy and colposcopy directed biopsy. Colposcopy, have you seen? We have a colposcope in the OPD. Please come and see it. Okay, how it functions. It is very easy. We can see a more magnified view so that we can do more justice to this screening program. Endocervical curettage and cone biopsy. These are the methods by which you can diagnose it. See, this is how the pap smear is taken. You have seen a pap smear to be taken. This will become, your practical exams will be on this. OSPE can come with pap smear. Okay, so these methods, these process you have to know. This is a colposcopic view of the cervix in a patient of invasive cervical cancer. This is how the colposcopic directed biopsy is done. This is how the biopsy is taken from the cervix, the endocervical curettage. The cone biopsy, see how it is taken. A cone is taken. A wedge is cut out to take the cone biopsy, and then it is examined under the microscope. Now, what is the differential diagnosis? You feel that is cancer cervix, but actually it is not. So, what are the other differential diagnoses? There can be just cervical polyps, fibroids, cervicitis, pelvic inflammatory disease, cervical tuberculosis, syphilitic ulcer, ectropion. This is a normal variation where the inner lining of the cervix is visible on the outside, which also bleeds to touch. This happens when? Any idea? This can happen in pregnancy. Okay, so this is very important. So don't diagnose all pregnant patients. You see a pap smear done and you feel that she has cancer. It's not. This is physiological change. This Cuomo-Columna junction is hormone sensitive. In different phases of life, it shifts. Now, how much it shifts and what is the cellular proliferation, that will determine whether she will have cancer or not. Okay, so this is not a fixed line. It extends down or it goes up depending upon the hormones. Which are the two hormones very predominant here? Estrogen and progesterone. So, you can have endometriosis also, cervical endometriosis, rare, but this can be a DD. DD means differential diagnosis. Vaginitis, that is infections and other malignancies, not cancer cervix, say uterine cancer, vaginal cancer or metastasis from other cancers. This can also cause cervical cancer. So these are the DD. What are the parameters for assigning stages of cancer cervix? Clinical, pathological, imaging, ultrasound, CT, MRI, positron emission tomography, FNSC, X-ray chest, IVP, renal USG in frank cancer cervix, cystoscopy, that is you visualize the inside of the bladder. What are we trying to see? Whether the cancer has spread or not. Yeah. Sigmoidoscopy, not mandatory, but recommended on basis of clinical features, not in all cases. This is a staging. Now you find it very complicated. So many things. Principally, you remember 4 things. It is confined to cervix. It has spread beyond the cervix. In second stage. Third stage, it has spread beyond the cervix, much beyond than the second stage. That is, we have to have an estimate how much it has spread laterally. Laterally means parametrium. Parametrium means besides the uterus. So, this is the lateral wall. Okay, so it has spread up, involved the parametrium, but not up to the lateral vaginal wall. So that is stage 2. Once it involves the lateral pelvic wall, it becomes stage 3. And stage 2 also, the vagina is involved. Upper 2/3, but not the lower third. And in stage 3, the lower third is also involved. Just remember 4 stages, First one confined to cervix. Please say with me. You will remember it. Then second stage, beyond the cervix. Parametrium involved but not up to the lateral pelvic wall. Vagina involved but not up to the lower third. And fourth stage is, of course, adjacent organs and distant organs. And then there are sub-classifications. This is a very complicated slide. We will break it up. This is how the staging looks. The stage 1 confined to cervix. The 5-year survival rate. If the patient has cancer cervix in stage 1, she is 5 years, that means she will survive at least 5 years in 86% cases. This is how we calculate the survival. She may survive beyond that, but it is calculated on this basis. See, second stage disease beyond cervix, but not to the pelvic wall. Please remember it. Go on saying it in your mind. Imagine the diagram. It has spread not up to the vaginal wall. The lower third of the vagina is not involved. That means upper 2/3 is involved. Upper 2/3 of vagina. So parametrium is involved. Upper 2/3 of vagina is involved. What stage is this? What stage is this? 2. Then we spread it further and it has extended up to lateral pelvic wall. So what is this? What stage? 3. It has involved the lower third of vagina. So it is, lower third is still stage 3. And there are lymphatic involvement also, we will come to it. So first, try to remember the organs involved. So stage 3 is disease to the pelvis and lower third of vagina. And stage 4 is, see, the bladder is involved, rectum is involved, and there is distant metastasis. So this is confined to cervix. Invasive carcinoma with, see, this is 1A and 1B. 1A is invasive carcinoma. This is microinvasive. That means it is less than 5 millimeter. It is called microinvasive. It is not visible on MRI. So it has now spread from stage 1A. B is depending upon the deepest invasion. So this can be classified into 1B1, B2, B3. If you can't remember that much, stick to stage 1. These are the further subdivisions depending on the depth of invasion, but the 5 millimeter remains constant. 1A, stage 1, it is within 5 millimeter. Fine. Then we come to stage 2. Stage 2 involves still beyond the cervix, and it involves what else? Yes? Parametrium up to what? Not involving the lateral pelvic wall. Isn't it? Parametrium is involved but not extending up to the lateral pelvic wall. And vagina is involved but not the lower third. See, please come back. Come back to this class. If you go home and try to read up, it is a big jumble. Why don't you ingrain it now? It's easier when you listen, difficult when you read it on your own. And this is the stage 3. Here it has expanded up to the lower third, see, and also the lateral extension is up to the pelvic wall. And it also can cause hydronephrosis and non-functioning of kidney. because it has spread to the lateral pelvic wall. So these structures will be involved. And there will be involvement of the lymph nodes also, pelvic nodes and para-aortic nodes. And of course, stage 4 is adjacent organs and distant metastasis. So 4 stages, at least broadly, you should be able to say. And if you have a theory question, you have to write the details also. So try to rehearse on your own. If you find that easier than concentrating in class, please rehearse on your own to write a paper. Write your theory paper. Am I clear? So this is what we have just discussed. Staging. Discussed about how we diagnose it, and this much. This is a revised system of FIGO staging 2018. Just remember it. Details we have discussed already. These are the stages at which the diagnosis occurs, in what percentage. And if the patient comes to us in the early stage includes stage 1, A, 1B1, B2, 2A1, if it is less than 4 centimeters. So beyond 2A, that is 1B3, if the tumor size is more than 4 centimeters, it is belonging to late stage. So early stage stops at 2A1, provided the tumor size is less than 4 centimeters. So this is early and this is late. And obviously the prognosis differs. The later the patient comes to you, later you diagnose, sooner she will die. Try to understand. These are the operations that we do. See, just to give you an idea, we do a less extensive operation when it is early stage. So this is just extrafascial hysterectomy. We are just doing a plain simple hysterectomy. Then if the parametrium is involved, we are including this. See the second line. Part of the parametrium is involved. And the last one, we are extending up to the lateral pelvic wall. So we have a wider resection. Just try to understand, we are trying to resect the tumor and the lymph nodes involved. This is the basics. The classification of these, just the names, try to remember. Type 1 is simple hysterectomy, type 2 modified radical, type 3 radical, type 4 extended radical, depending upon how much of tissue you are removing. Type 4 is extended radical, and type 5 exenteration, means part of the other viscera are also removed. Part of bladder, part of rectum are also removed along. So these are the things. Broadly, remember again the staging. Staging, 4 stages, please come back. Cervix, beyond the cervix, up to the lateral pelvic wall, below the vagina, up to the lower third of vagina, then extending to adjacent organs and beyond. Basic 4 stages you remember, and the subdivisions you will come to it slowly. Try to do it yourself. Go on saying it to yourself. This is how you remember it. So these are the stages, how we treat it with the cold knife conization in case of 1A1 cervical cancer, then total hysterectomy, these we have discussed. So this is in a nutshell. You will be definitely asked about the lymphatic drainage, staging may be asked, clinical features, and how will you diagnose a patient coming to you? How will you manage a case? So 1 or 2 lines of management will include a bit of treatment. You are not doing operations. You may not have seen that also, but the outline you must be having in mind. So this is the treatment, and other treatments are also possible: immunotherapy, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and pelvic exenteration. These are advanced treatments. So now this is the global initiative launched by 2030, who has proposed 90-70-90 triple pillar intervention strategy. This is a public health program. So to detect cancer cervix is a public health program, and this will be taken up in your next class, how you will detect the pre-malignant lesions and how you manage it.